Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump facing off last night in their first one-on-one debate, but not all candidates on the ballot in November were on that stage last night at Hofstra. Joining me right now is one of them, Green Party presidential candidate, Dr. Jill Stein. Dr. Stein, good to see you.
Great to be with you,
Thank you so much for joining us. And I know you had your own audience on Facebook because you were out and about. Both you and Gary Johnson, though, needed 15% of the vote to actually participate in that debate. You did not reach that goal, obviously. How are you going to reach that goal next debate?
So first, let me just say that the Commission on Presidential Debates is a private corporation run by the Democratic and Republican parties. So, of course, they set a threshold that basically silences political opposition. That's not what democracy looks like. That's two-party tyranny. And there were a lot of people clamoring for another point of view. And we're going to keep pushing. The League of Women Voters said that the commission was basically perpetrating a fraud on the American voter when they quit when the Democratic and Republican parties took over.
Yeah, but how is it fraud? The rules are the rules. It's 15% or nothing. You're at 2%, Dr. Stein. Come on.
Right. Well, we're at 2% having not been covered, essentially. Donald Trump had $4 billion. Hillary Clinton had $2 billion. We've basically been suppressed. And they established themselves. The Democratic and Republican parties established themselves back in the late 1980s because the candidates refused to participate unless they could control the debate themselves.
All right, we're going to get a lot in here because I know viewers want to get your take on things. Number one, who do you think won the debate last night?
Well, it wasn't the American people who won the debate. I think they heard what they've heard before. They did not hear actually about how we're going to create jobs. In fact, Donald Trump, talks about the same kind of trickle-down economics, tax breaks at the top, which have not created jobs. We've been doing that for decades.
Yeah, but let me ask you about
working.
that, because the last time you came on the program, I asked you straight out, how are you going to create jobs? And you talked about this whole green initiative and how you're going to create, I think you said 20 million jobs.
That's right.
Okay, 20 million jobs, Dr. Stein, we haven't seen 20 million jobs created in decades.
That's right. Yeah, well, actually,
how are you going to create 20 million jobs?
We will do it in the same way that we created jobs during the Great Depression. We had a thing called the New Deal, which were directly government-created jobs where government provides grants and incentives and subsidies to small businesses, bring our small businesses back, to worker cooperatives and nonprofits. So we directly create that investment.
How do you do that? In other words, take taxes lower for small business? Is that one way or no?
No, it would actually, right. So that's been tried before, and it's not a very efficient way. It costs us a lot of money. That's a lot of what Barack Obama did during the stimulus package of 2009. Spent like $800 million to create 3 million jobs.
So connect the dots for us. How are you going to create jobs?
By the direct funding of the jobs, so that if you're providing a trickle-down tax break, it doesn't really work. It's not efficient. We will directly provide grants and subsidies for creating jobs directly.
How do you pay for it?
So the good news is it actually pays for itself. You have to put the investment in up front. But we save so much money when you phase out fossil fuels. There are 200,000 people who die every year from fossil fuels. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of illness related to that pollution. So
I still don't understand how you create jobs. I'm not following.
We basically put in the money, and we say, if you are going to create these jobs, actually what we do is let the communities decide what kind of jobs they need, and through their own process, they provide the grants and the incentives to start up new small businesses, to provide money for expansion, for jobs that will transition our economy to clean, renewable energy in the time frame that we need to avert climate change.
Well, by the way, Barack Obama also did talk about green opportunities. He invested in Solara. He did a lot in terms of solar, and that went bust. Well, so that's been tried before and it failed.
One went bust, but the whole program actually came out in the black. And we're not providing it to large corporations. We're providing it to communities to decide who they need to create their jobs, whether it's clean
I don't want to
energy.
get stuck on that. I'm going to ask you about the protest last night. You held a protest at Hofstra University. You were then escorted out. That's not the first time you've been escorted out.
Well, in fact, I was escorted out even before the protest. I was on the campus for interviews that I had been invited to with Fox, with MSNBC, and we were intercepted because the students were flocking. We had huge support from the students on campus.
How come you were escorted out then?
That's a good question, and they were not going to answer that for us. So
what was the point? You wanted this to make some noise. You weren't on the debate stage.
Well, we were there yesterday for interviews on the campus. Outside, yes, we were there to assert our democratic rights. We don't think it's fair. The people of America are screaming for more voices and more choices. 76% of Americans want a fully inclusive debate. Yeah. They want to hear the whole spectrum of their choices, and they have rejected at unprecedented levels Trump and Clinton as being the most disliked and most untrusted ever. What's wrong with this picture?
Real quick, the other issue, national security. How are you going to keep the country safe?
We are going to create a new offensive in the Middle East called a peace offensive, because the war offensive is failing madly.
And you think that's going to take ISIS down, a peace offensive?
Well, actually, by depriving them of funding and weapons, yes, that will take them down, and of militias that are crossing over Turkey's borders. So we basically starve them of what they need in order to survive.
If it was so easy to deprive them of weapons, wouldn't we have done that?
Well, no, because we have a weapons industry which is dictating foreign policy to Washington through this military-industrial complex, which causes taxpayers. It costs us half of your income tax is going for this bloated, dangerous military budget, which eats up half.
So you want to cut back on military. You want to cut back on military.
And put those dollars into true security here at home, because it's creating failed states, mass refugee migrations, and worse terrorist threats. Every terrorist threat we have been fighting has only gotten bigger. Right. We need to do something else.
Stein, good to see you.
Good to talk with you,
Maria.
Thank you.
Jill Stein up next. National